Right, CTV's Kevin Gallagher is standing by in Ottawa covering the story. Kevin, you know the criticism against the Trudeau government for years that they're too lenient. People are released too easily. They go out, they recommit crimes. Oftentimes it's the same handful of people that keep doing these sorts of things. Talk to us about these reforms now and what we can expect.
Well, what we should expect is there's a real targeted approach here. This is what Justice Minister David Lametti has really been trying to say that we should all look for in his legislation. And those targeted approaches will focus on repeat violent offenders, specifically those who have committed those violent crimes with weapons. And that includes firearms, but also knives and even bear spray. The violent and serious crimes that can be committed, we will probably see something that will impact around the seriousness of the imprisonment. So, and within what we know from an earlier technical briefing with justice officials is that, it's going to also be considered within 5 years. So, for example, someone who's already been charged, arrested with a crime, convicted, I should really say, of a violent offense, specifically with a weapon, that now we're going to expect that at this time, when you're applying for bail, it's really up to the prosecution to prove why bail should be denied, whether there are extenuating circumstances or a flight risk issue or perhaps the violence or seriousness of the crimes. That can certainly be applied for at the time. What this would involve in these changes is that would be reversed. The onus is reversed so that it would actually be up to the accused if they had a history of violent crime, specifically with weapons and even some firearms violations as well. That onus would then be on the accused and their defense team to prove why they should get bail. So that's the difference there. Of course, we did hear from Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, who's looked at some of these proposed changes. They have been tabled as well in the House of Commons, and he's saying that they simply don't go far enough. It's not really clear what specific mechanism Mr. Poilievre would have, but he's using a catchphrase, it seems, that is jail, not bail, for serious violent offenders. And so it's not clear whether there would just not be offered any bail after a certain level of violent offenses. There's some specificity I think we'd need from the official opposition leader. But certainly that could be some criticism that might be levied against this current proposed legislation. Will it go far enough? A lot of these calls really started to amplify in the past, say, 6 to 9 months, when we started to see more and more high-profile offenses committed by people who were out on bail. The mass stabbing in James Smith Cree Nation, Miles Sanderson, who's accused of that crime, was out on bail. You also have the alleged shooter who's accused of killing an Ontario Provincial Police Constable, Greg Pershala. That's back in December. Randall McKenzie is charged with first-degree murder in that particular case. The police at the time called an ambush. He had been out on bail, but he had at first, of course, been denied bail, and then it was reevaluated by another judge, and some of his past experiences from domestic abuse and also his Indigenous heritage in terms of the overrepresentation of Indigenous people in the criminal justice system was taken into account. So all of this gets a little complicated, and we're going to see if these proposed changes from the federal government. We've already heard criticism from the Conservatives, but we're sort of waiting to hear for some more criticism or some more feedback, let's say, from people who are working within the criminal justice system, the Police Chiefs Association that called for a lot of these reforms. We'll see if for the Police Chiefs Association, whether these reforms that the Liberals are proposing today really go far enough. And also, there have been calls as well from criminal defense attorneys and others who work within the criminal justice system saying that actually bail reform is not necessarily the fix-all solution here. There also has to be more resources that goes to police officers. The Liberals will point you to a large investment they've recently made, about $390 million, that would go towards helping police units with their guns and gangs investigations and preventative measures. But also, if we just go back to either Miles Sanderson in Saskatchewan, or of course Randall McKenzie, they were both had arrest warrants, and so maybe police also need more resources to try and keep track of people who are out on bail or maybe who have arrest warrants for them to be brought into custody, Todd.
Kevin Gallagher in Ottawa, thank you.